that my mother had born to her equals a duck. What is it, Trey?
Yo, man, that's the formula.
Yo, Formula episode 4.
Episode 4, crazy.
I know we got a good routine going with it. Today is Monday, April 21st. Something I thought we should start doing as we intro is calling out the date. I think in addition to seeing the upload date for these, it will be cool for us to just kind of call out what date it is so we can see how stuff continues to progress. But we kind of just started getting into it a little bit, but walk me through your weekend, Easter weekend. What'd you do these past few days?
Gosh, I'm gonna sound like a degenerate, but Steph and I stayed in Chicago. Friday, I went crazy on a steak, miso glaze, and then, you know, a little soy sauce, a little Dijon mustard, all the good stuff. Cooked to perfection with some spicy potatoes. Saturday, we went to her friend's birthday party, and it started at 12 or noon, I should say. And I didn't get home till 1 in the morning. And we were out having a grand old time. Made some good friends after that. So it was
It
good.
was like it was a work friend of Steph's, or how did you know them in general?
No, it was her friend from college. Um, so we were with them the weekend before for a different friend's birthday. And then we had her birthday, but she did like a private chef and bartender, which was cool. I'd never been to something like that. So,
Oh
um,
yeah.
but yeah, it was good. And then Sunday, Steph and I were dead and we were in Chicago by ourselves. So we just ate the leftovers from the steak and had a relaxing day. How about you?
Do you guys cook at home often? Like what's your
Yeah. Yeah.
eat out versus cook to home ratio?
Well, the last few weeks have been eating out a lot because we've always done meal prepping and like I'll just cook a whole chicken and make potatoes and all this stuff. But a lot of our meals have gotten pretty repetitive. So we kind of just have been sick of them. So we were eating out. And like with work or like getting this new job, it was just a lot. So I was just like eating whatever, whenever I could, which is kind of how I used to be. So.
Do you guys have the same like kind of diet, like the stuff that you meal prep? Are you guys usually on the same page, or do you have any ways that you differ?
Well, Steph is dairy and gluten free. So now I've just basically transitioned to living the same diet as her just because it's way easier to do it that way. I still will eat dairy, like I'll eat yogurt pretty often. Um, but obviously she can't have that. And then if I go out, I'll have cheese or whatever. But in the house, no, like I eat 3 boiled eggs every morning with quinoa and vegetables, typically spinach, and then chicken for lunch, potatoes, basically every day. And then dinner is something different always for us.
Yeah, it's the same over here. I asked that too because my diet has sort of transitioned into what Caroline's is too, because she's dairy, gluten, and vegetarian.
Oh, really?
So,
I
yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah, which is nice. Like you said, I mean, everything that is left is all healthy stuff and stuff I'd prefer anyway. So
Yeah,
often when she cooks or when I cook, we'll do some sort of veggie roast or something that's vegetarian, and then I'll cook a meat on the side or
yeah,
something. So, I mean, pretty easy to collaborate on meals once we started living together, and it sounds like you and Steph are the same.
yeah, for sure. Well, like you said, it's all healthy stuff too. Like I'm not going to be eating garbage. And the fact that she's dairy free, I used to eat so much cheese. I mean, I'm from Wisconsin, so like that's basically at least once a day I was eating something with cheese in it. So it's good that I'm not doing that now.
Yeah, dope.
But has Caroline always been vegetarian?
No, I mean, as long as I've known her, and hers is, um, it just kind of like grosses her out a bit. I think like the way that a lot of meats are processed and things, she's just not a fan of. Like she has no issue being around it when I'm preparing it and stuff. Just doesn't prefer to have meals with meat herself.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I
I
don't know.
guess I
It's
didn't
tough.
realize that when we like ate with her, but I feel like we didn't really like, I don't know. I just didn't notice, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that's cool about her too, is as many kind of diet restrictions that she does have, she's pretty, I don't know, neutral about it. Like she usually can find something that she'll eat and she doesn't make much of a fuss about having to have certain things. And especially around the holidays, it's tough because my family, meat lovers, and especially around Thanksgiving and Easter and stuff, is ham and turkey and mashed
Yeah.
potatoes and all that kind of stuff. So she has to pick her on that stuff often. But again, you wouldn't necessarily know that she has those restrictions because she's not super, you know,
And
talkative about it.
I mean, Steph's the same way too. Like the worst thing she wants to do is to have other people be talking about it. Or
Yeah.
like Steph's thing is if you're ordering food, if she order and she's like, "Yeah, can I just get it dairy free?" And the person after will be like, "Yeah, I'll get the nachos with dairy, no restrictions."
She hates that.
Yeah, she's like, "You don't have to tell them that." And like then it's just putting more focus on those things. So,
Yeah, Caroline's the same. Just also with attention things in general. Like she told me one of the first dates that we went on, don't like surprises, don't like any unexpected attention. So
yeah.
keep that in mind. So I think I've done a
Yeah.
good job at that. But for my weekend, what did I do this weekend? Friday, ended up just laying low. I was supposed to get together with Mario and our buddy Tim, who we've been working on that album on, who I've been working on that album with. I know we've texted a bit about it,
Wait, you're
about
making
like
an
shooting.
album?
Yeah, so Tim is like the primary person who's doing vocals and like rapping on it. Mario makes a lot of the beats, and I don't know what my position really is. I kind of just give
You're there for
feedback,
vibes?
help with some of the production and stuff, but us three have kicked it making music since middle school, high school. And Tim has a lot of songs and a lot of good songs. Some of them I have rapped on in the past, but we'll see if any of those make it to the light
Dude,
of
that's what
day.
the intro should be. It's just you rapping,
Hey,
spitting
you'd be
bars.
you'd be surprised, man. I got a little something in me.
Hey, man, I
But
believe it.
Tim is a beast. Tim is he kind of has like a Mac Miller, um, uh, Jack Harlow kind of a vibe to him,
Are you saying that
and
just because he's white?
it's a big reason for it. But he's good. There's some really good songs that he's made, and now we're kind of starting to formalize it a bit and put it into an album and have a rollout strategy. And there's like a whole theme that's tied to the album. And I've talked to LaShawn a bit about shooting some visuals, either like a full length video or just doing some real kind of stuff to chop stuff up to get it out there. And anyway, we're supposed to work on that on Friday. That ended up falling through. So Caroline and I just ended up kicking it at home. Saturday, we helped some friends of ours move, John and Lulu, who you met when you were in town.
Yeah, yeah.
They're Milwaukee folks. So that was
They're
nice.
from
Their new place
Milwaukee?
is
I didn't
pretty
even
dope.
realize that.
Yeah, yep. They go back super often too. So helped them move on Saturday, and then Sunday was Easter. We went to my uncle's, which is in Ham Lake, and then we went to Caroline's mom's, which is in Hopkins. So balance between the different families.
To Hopkins too. They're making it Paige Becker's Day on, what was it, May 16th or something?
Yeah, we were actually talking about that yesterday because Caroline's niece is like growing up in the Hopkins school district. No idea who Paige Beckers is. Like she's only like 7 or 6 or something. So she's just relax, give her some grace. She's just a kid still. Um, but yeah, we were talking about it a bit yesterday and how prevalent she is in that school system and stuff. But yeah, she's doing it big. It's just cool to see.
Sounds like a good weekend though. Easter was good with the family.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where we're going to Florida again tomorrow, and I'm just kind of trying to button everything up today. And tomorrow we have a later flight, so I'll be working during the day, and then we'll be leaving that afternoon and trying to get everything organized so I don't have as much to come back to as I did last time.
I think that's a good transition then too into just talking kind of about the situation that you're in currently. You just want to give like a little bit of an overview and then just kind of, you know, yeah, how this came about and how that's working currently.
As far as like my transition and stuff goes,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I work in the SEO world, as you know. I've worked in that world for about 8 years now, since 2017, 2018. And one of my first jobs out of college, I worked in an agency environment. So I quickly understood how to replicate the process of the things that I do, how to assemble a dream team, and how to work on projects, you know, work on a few different projects at a time, and how to manage clients, and how to create the processes to build a business of my own. So as long as I've been working in the kind of corporate side of doing SEO, I've been building a bit of a business on the side to hopefully go into that full time down the line. And as long as you've known me, I've been kind of preaching about how I'm on my way out of this job. I'm on my way out of this job. And it's been a bit of a slow burn because I've made a lot of financial decisions that my career needs to support, like, buying a house and things like that. So it's kind of prevented me from taking as big of a risk or as big of a leap into running that business full time. And it's kept me hanging on in my full time role just so I can have the consistent paycheck always. And what my plan was with it was I'm going to work myself, to the bone to build this thing up in addition to the 40 hours that I'm putting in per week at my job until they kind of reach this tipping point where now it doesn't feel like as much of a financial risk, and I feel like I can completely cut that piece out and all the time that it's restricting me from dedicating to my own business. So fast forward to now, like I said, I've been in the job that I'm in now for what will be 4 years in May, and I'm starting to build up a good client base. I'm starting to really understand how this process looks outside of just doing SEO in the corporate world. And I feel like I've washed away a lot of the what you'd call, I guess, imposter syndrome of feeling like I can do it without having someone else's infrastructure to work beneath. So I know a lot of the stuff that we talk about, and even like within this podcast since it started, has been a bit ambiguous just about what work all entails. But I feel like I could be a human case study at this point with the amount of different stuff that I've been juggling, both within my full-time job, because I mean, you've heard me complain and vent and talk about what my life is like in that job and everything that entails. But then now learning how to quantify everything that I'm doing on top of that, often within that work day that I'm doing the full-time job stuff, kind of balancing between the two, but then also after hours, into dinner time, on the weekends, waking up early in the morning, and trying to do best by each of these different clients as good as I can. And now I'm finally getting to the point, and that's why like vacations kind of are tough in this current stage where I want to make sure I'm giving the best product to everyone that I'm working with, which is sometimes something that I've been struggling with a bit lately, trying to deliver the quality that I could if I was working on a single client to all the different clients that I'm at once. So that's the current stage, is just, taking the leap from the corporate thing fully, which I think is coming close. We've talked a bit about what that transition's looking like and what it's going to look like once I get to the other side. So taking it day by day.
So, I kind of just want to like appreciate you running through that whole thing. I kind of want to jump to the front part of it though. You talked a lot about like, this imposter syndrome and getting started. Can you kind of walk us through in the beginning, one, how did you know you wanted to do something like this? And then how did you like even get started with finding a client or um, just juggling? Like, what were some of those struggles that you were dealing with to start? And, you said you've been doing it for years now. Well, why now?
Yeah. So I think I've gotten lucky, first of all, with having people like you and other people in my life that just have this tenacious spirit to do things outside of what's expected. Um, I went through this program in college called the Integrated Business Experience, which I've told you a bit about, but it's a similar program to what other colleges allow, where you get to kind of build a business up, you get to build the marketing plan around the business, you get to sell the product, and you get to kind of see in real time what it looks like to build up a business your own way and what the results can be depending on what you put into it. And I just was I had a consumer insights degree. That's what I graduated with like an entrepreneurship minor. And marketing always kind of interested me because I knew I wanted to be on like the promotional side of business. I thought sales could be another potential path for me, but I knew in finding roles from the second I got out of college that every job that I had would be temporary, and that the purpose for each of those positions was for me to learn everything I could, connect with everyone that I could, gain all the resources that I could, access the programs and the systems that they use to help understand for the next role I'd be in, um, until I eventually felt like I really had the tools, resources, and network to do it without having someone else's infrastructure to fall back on. And I feel like I can say that confidently now, but I think there was a theme throughout this whole process, like since I graduated college, that everything's going to be temporary. I want to really be a sponge in each of these positions, but I never really knew what the next step was ever. I knew that I wanted to not work for somebody forever. And I told you that I kind of started doing the agency thing on my own as soon as I understood what that process was like in my first job. But my, I guess, 5, 10 year plan with it a bit has changed often throughout that time because I don't necessarily want to be an agency owner now. And I think I understand that process.
Yeah.
But some like a through line through this all too has been, well, I don't want to do SEO forever. SEO has been a means to an end for me. It's been what I'm best at. It's been what I've dedicated all my time to. But I think my answer for, why I want to do this kind of changes. But to touch a bit on like the getting a client thing, that's something I'm still learning about too. Honestly, every client that I've worked on has been things that have fallen to my lap. I have a bit of a it's a bit lucky working in SEO that people don't always know what SEO is, but people know what websites are.
Yeah. They don't even know
So,
what SEO stands for.
right. So often the projects that I get involved with are clients that need new sites, or at least that's what it was at the beginning. You need a new site. You want people to find your site. You might not you might not need to know how to get there, but I'm the person that can kind of take you there. So a lot of my clients have happened that way. And one thing has just kind of led to another. And, between the network that I built and the people that I've connected within my jobs and outside of my jobs and knowing people that need work, I've kind of just balanced between opportunities and built my portfolio up that way. But the tide is kind of starting to turn where I'm starting to dump some of the more BS clients and the clients that I'm taking on to make the money, and starting to work with the clients that require my expertise, have their checkbooks open, and I can really move the needle with. So this was the point that I knew once I kind of got to this position that's when it would be less about me talking about making this move and me starting to really put my boots on the ground to make those changes by getting a project management software, organizing myself a little bit better, um, learning from my mentors we talked about in previous calls, understanding what this process really looks like and what clients want to hear, and cutting out any of the question marks, like the imposter syndrome thing. I think it was a tough one for me, but imposter syndrome goes away when you know everything about what you're doing. It's just, yeah, I don't know. If you don't have any question marks and there's no holes in the processes, there's not anything about what you're delivering to a client or anything that you're doing that you're not confident in. Once you remove all those question marks, I feel like it makes the rest of the stuff a lot more easy.
Yeah.
So,
And how did some of those mentors help you fill in those gaps? Because you're somebody that has some great mentors, and I feel like a lot of them have fallen in your lap at times. Like,
yeah.
how have they helped you in this process?
Yeah, well, you actually mentioned this in the last podcast about just asking a lot of questions. I think that the thing with mentorships is, and to be honest, I don't really know what the formal definition of a mentor is. Honestly, I reference mentors as just people that I work with and that have taught me a lot of stuff and
Yeah.
got me
Someone you can
clients
ask
and things
questions
like
to.
that. Someone I could ask questions. And as lucky as I feel like I've gotten with some of the people that I've met, everything that I've gotten out of those mentors are people that is based on the questions that I'm asking. Like you talk about the imposter syndrome thing. I go into all the conversations with these mentors candidly saying, here's the parts of the process I understand. Here's the parts I don't. Help me figure out these parts I don't understand. And I don't say it that explicitly, but with SEO, for example, we talked a bit on the last call too about I walked through what Graham's process is and how he handles his audits. And what I'd mentioned was I've always been good. I've been doing the work for all these years, but I haven't been talking about doing the work for that long at all. Because usually it's you do the work, you give the work to someone who's higher up, and they present on the wins that the team's had. So that was a big thing for me when I started working with Graham was, I'll do the most in-depth audit. I'll find the ins and outs of this client's website. I'll spend days, weeks figuring out what they need to improve the performance for their site. But I'm not good at dumbing it down so that they can understand what I'm finding. So I just always go into these conversations with my mentors candidly and say, here's what I don't get, and here's what I need help with. And, some are more apt to give me advice, and some keep their cards a little bit closer to their chest. But I don't know. Got to work with what you got.
I feel like that's a key point too, with what that a lot of people don't understand. Like when it comes to just, we're gonna call them mentors here, like we have been, but people that you can ask questions to is one, that vulnerability piece of just knowing that you don't know everything and like knowing that they can help you in some sort of way. But then two, being able to speak on that, like, all right, I can understand this piece, like I get this piece, but this part I have no clue. Can you help me with this? And I feel like a lot of people, especially in my own experiences when I was at Schneider early on, I was asking very straightforward questions that are still open-ended, like to get them to talk more. But the biggest complaint I always heard from people was, well, when people come talk to me, it's usually a waste of time because they're just saying, just tell me everything you know. Well, what the heck does that mean? Like, there's so many ways that everything can go. So, um, I'm glad that you even brought that piece up of just like laying out what you need help with, because when you do that, people are like, yeah, I can do that. Otherwise, they're just like, what? Why are you wasting my time, So,
Well, as long as I've been in my professional career, I've always talked about how important networking is. And You only get as much out of it as you put into it, I think, too, because I think for every 100 messages that you might send, two people might actually respond, and
Yeah.
then none of those people might actually give good insight or have any way to help you in your career. But I was doing that from the time I was a sophomore in college and just shooting cold LinkedIn DMs, meeting with the advisor on campus. Again, not really knowing what it would get me, but the more conversations I have, the more comfortable you start to understand, the more comfortable you start to become with how some of this stuff works, how to just talk with these types of people in general, which I feel like prepared me to when I did actually have mentors who were in the same field as me, who actually could help me out with some of the stuff I wanted to learn. I knew how to navigate those conversations because I've dealt with 1,000 people like them already. And I got lucky enough too that the people that I work with, I have enough of a variety with them that I learned something completely different from one than I do from the other. And especially from an SEO perspective, it's been interesting learning as I start to kind of figure out what I want to do on my own with it because one of the businesses that I work with is completely content SEO driven. So everything that they do has to do with how the content on the page is structured, how the content on the page is written, the blog, all the kind of stuff that's integrated with actual keyword performance for websites. But then the other one is completely technical driven. So we don't even really talk about the content. And it's often e-commerce sites that have thousands of pages and the way that their links are set up and all these little intricacies that are totally opposites from each other, but are equally as important depending on the client that you're working with. So it's always interesting for me too, because sometimes I have these conversations about content SEO and think, does this really even matter? Because we just did all this on this other client and this is what helped them. And then realize that's what's been so beneficial of me trying to become as well rounded with this stuff as possible before fully taking the leap, which I think has held me back in some senses. I've really been waiting for everything to be perfectly aligned before I roll the dice, but it's also given me a unique opportunity to sit back and really get the reps in before I feel like I am just thrown to the wolves. So
Why do you think it's held you back? Like, what do you mean by that?
I I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people that I know and have worked with, and like you're an example of this. A lot of people that have taken the more riskier route and they take the jump and they'll sleep on the floor and they'll, do whatever. And I've taken a little bit of a safer approach to, which I'm glad I did. Like, I'm not talking about it in a negative way, but I think it's prolonged something that's gonna, you know, explode as soon as I explodes, maybe not the right word, is gonna blast off once I fully can invest my time in it because the what if for me is always, well, all this time that I'm investing into this thing that is making me consistent money, if I cut that out and invested that same amount of time into my own business, I could, 10x that money potentially. But I have put myself in a now like financial position where it's important to have that money to keep coming in because I have a rental property. I've, bills I have to keep up with, student loans and things. Happy that I took the route that I did, but that's just why sometimes I'm like, how long do I really drag this out before I take that risk and see what could come from it?
You feel like you've gained more confidence though from taking that route?
For sure. For sure. I Yeah, I mean, all the stuff that I just talked about figuring out, I had the cushion from the full-time job to take some of the risks in working with some of these people to get the reps in instead of doing it with my back against the wall, which also might have been a good practice. Like we've talked about this before, working at the last minute before something has to go live. Pressure creates diamonds on occasion, but if I end up on the streets, like maybe it wasn't as worth it as I thought. But I don't know. I'm closer now than ever too, which is nice. the stress is at an all-time high, which sucks, but it's for good reason, I always say. And I'm trying to kind of take stress and busy out of my vocabulary, but I'm excited at the place I'm at, and we're going to get to document the journey in real time when I'm going to come on here and say, I'm locked in. I'm locked in on this business full time. The rest of the stuff's in the rear view.
Close to that are you though?
Yeah, that's so I don't know how in depth to go into this on this podcast specifically, but I'm very close. Like I said, I'm pretty much at a point that I've never been where my clients are the real deal, and I'm working with people that the check clears and they don't bat an eye at the amount that my work is valued at. And I'm starting to cut out some of the work that is done for, you know, just like a homie, just to try to help out. Like I'm always happy to do that kind of stuff, but if it's a business that I'm gonna live off of, I need to be working with enterprises. I need it to be long-term engagements, and I need it to be for the money that my business is valued at. And I think it takes a while to get there. I think specifically in my situation, it's taken a while to get there, but I've gotten over a lot of humps, and I'd say I don't know. I'd said by April, but there's a couple loose ends that still need to be buttoned up with my full-time job. And yeah, I think in like probably the next month as I can confidently leave without feeling like I'm putting anyone in a bad position, then uh I'll be at it full time for sure.
Are you all right with us kind of like going into what that process has been like, even like bringing that up to your employer?
Yeah, we can talk about it.
You sure?
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I think maybe, no, yeah, that's fine. We can get into it. I'll just, yeah, anything I don't want to talk about, I'll just not talk about it.
So I know you had a mentor that kind of helped you in this process. First, do you want to just talk about that, just like kind of the transition that he made, and then, what advice he gave you, and then how you started implementing that?
Yeah. I actually was thinking about this before hopping on this call because there was two things, two specific pieces that he gave me, and one of the two of them I'm already forgetting. So I guess take it with a grain of salt. But I know one of them was staying power, and that's in reference to the amount of money that you should have saved up before you feel like you can fully go full time without having any income coming in. And then I'm trying to remember what the other thing was that he recommended, but it was just like the kind of two to-dos or two things to have in order to set your infrastructure up so that if you don't
Has
have
it ever
money
been to do with
coming in,
processes?
yeah, it's something to do with, no, I have it written down somewhere, but staying power I know is a big one of them. And it's funny because I'm going into these two pieces, both are things I haven't really listened to. If I was like smart and more dialed in, I definitely would have that stuff in place. But
Yeah.
he took a bit more of a systematic approach than I did, where he was very forthcoming with his company that he worked with about, this is the company that I run on the side, this is my end goal, fully separating the two and providing maximum value to both. Whereas my situation's been a little bit different because I have kind of avoided fully talking about the capacity at which work I do take on the side, just because I don't know how they'll feel about that. Um, and like I said, there's like a teeny bit of overlap. I try to keep it professional and keep any of my side business work to outside of office hours. But I don't know. I'm like working with clients that need me often throughout the day, and if a page breaks or a site's going live, or there's something that's has to be done within the working hours of my clients, I have to kind of find a way to juggle the two. So, what was your initial question again? What am I talking about? The transition from,
Yeah, I was just talking about how like your mentor kind of tr sparked, how his transition happened,
oh
what
yeah,
he led into for you, and then just kind of what's happened since then.
yeah, and it's funny too because the way that me and him initially connected was because his SEO team was hiring. So I interviewed with a position at his company that he was the SEO director of. They offered me the job. I turned the job down. This was probably
Year and a
two
half
years
ago.
ago now. Yeah, a year and a half
It
ago.
was, yeah, less early last summer.
So, and me and him hit it off through the interview process. I turned the job down that they ended up giving. I was like, I'm not really in a place that I want to pick back up and start at a new company, knowing that I'm hopefully looking to make this transition out in the near future from my company. That's one thing I've said too, and I think I've said Polaris since I've been on here that that's where I currently work. But since I started there, I've said that Polaris will be the last company that I work for. The duration is a bit longer than I've expected, but I've said Polaris will be the last company that I've worked for as long as I've worked there. Not to them, but to myself internally. A bit, we talked a bit about the process of my growth through these positions and what my end goal was in kind of getting some of these corporate gigs. I always have said Polaris will be my last job. So my experience with, I guess I can say Lowe's is where he worked. He worked for the Lowe's hardware company and he was an SEO hire up there. Um, they reached out to me through a LinkedIn kind of cold DM like you did for Salesforce. So I saw the process through. The recruiter was the sweet woman named Victoria. She was amazing, or Vanessa. She was super amazing, the sweetest lady, walked me through the process. And it actually was two different positions that I'd interviewed at for Lowe's. The first one was kind of like a position that was a bit beneath me at the time. And then they carved out another position that was right below Graham. And I know this has nothing to do with your question, so I promise I'm going to get back to it. But um, I ended up turning the second position down. And then Graham left Lowe's, I think like 6 months later. So right after he left, he reached back out and said, "Hey man, happy you didn't take that position because I now left to pursue my company full time, but I'd love to stay in touch and however I can help you and potentially find a way for us to work together in the future." So for the next year after that, he became kind of a mentor to me where we were meeting, I think this once a month, and we really had nothing in the pipeline for us to work together. And we would have these sort of open-ended calls, just talking about, what stage I was at with my business, what I needed to learn. Like you said, some of his processes for keeping himself organized as he went into his business full time and kind of what I'd have to expect leaving that. So I don't know. I kind of started to put some of that stuff into practice myself. And I'm trying to think of some of like the specific actionables that he gave, but I don't know how much like tangible that I got from him. I think everything that I've learned has been just from working with clients, understanding like the agency format, understanding what I'm good at with this process and what I'm not good at, understanding like the different tier of the work that I could be working on, understanding like the project management software thing we talked about a bit. Like so long, I just was organizing my stuff in folders on my like navigation tab and like scattered Google Docs and drives. Eventually transitioned into using Asana so I could keep track of each individual project and like how it progressed through the different stages throughout the month. Financial planning was a big piece. I talked about the staying power thing, but also like keeping track of who I'm paying what and where I'm paying them on and making sure that they're getting the documents that they need for taxes. And I don't know, I can get into a lot of different stuff, I guess, about the stuff I figured out along the process, but
Yeah. Um, okay, so kind of just to wrap up what you said, just to make sure, like, one, yeah, he
yeah,
kind of introduced the concept to you. There was obviously things that he put in front of you, but a lot of it was just like it almost sounds like he was just kind of validating, like, oh yeah, you can make this move, and then for you, it's
100%.
like, yeah, oh, this is how you do it. And I think like this is one thing we talked about maybe last time we talked is a lot of times, you think that. making these transitions are these huge decisions, and like these people are so smart and all these different things, but really it's just people that one took the leap, two just keep showing up and doing it. And you're like, that guy's no smarter than me. Like I can do that. I can do it actually better than him too. Um, so it sounds like that's kind of what it was. And now you feel like you've learned in a place through trial and error too. And like you said, getting that confidence going through it that, all right, now I can start to make this shift because I've done now. I'm doing what it takes to actually run this thing properly.
Yeah, and I think the validation piece was spot on. I think between me learning how to do this stuff on my own to get rid of the imposter syndrome, but then the validation I think was super important to me just because I was talking with someone who had done it at such a higher level than me. The thing about Graham too is there's so many agencies and there's so many people that run these businesses at such a low level, and he's managing clients on his own that SEO teams of like 10 to 12 people typically take on.
Yeah.
So as dialed in as I am and as much work as I've put in to figure out these processes, Graham's been 10 steps ahead of me always. And it's been super important for me to learn from a person like that because same as you, there's always something more that we can be doing to organize our stuff. There's more that we can learn. There's something that we can do better than we're already doing. And like what you said about the I can do that thing. Like I'm seeing other people doing it at such a lower level. Even with like the podcast is a good example of it. Like we just hopped on here and started recording this shit, and you'll watch it start to gradually get better over time. The formatting of it, the packaging of it, the specific dialogues, the topics that we talk about, guests will start to come on. I think that there's with my business, with this podcast, with anything, perfection is always in the way of doing something really well. And we've always been pretty resourceful people and people that take in a lot from the people that are around us. And whether it's like an SEO agency or whether it's a podcast, I never really think that anyone can do it better than me or that anyone has access to resources that I don't. So I think that's a good mindset for people to have in business, but to have just kind of in life in general.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's just like such a crucial piece is you just got to start somewhere. Like everybody started in a shitty spot compared to where they want to be. And maybe they had this grand idea of this is what it's supposed to look like. And if I can't make it like this, then, it's not even worth making. But that's just not true. There's this book, I think it's called like Camera Crew of One or something like that. But it talks about this guy that he made a movie and he did it by himself and he wrote a book about that process. And you think you have to, especially for a movie, like these people are spending millions of dollars, they're doing all this stuff, but if you're scrappy enough to go out and figure it out and figure out how to do each step and to put the work in, um just thinking about it, making a plan and doing it, and at least just starting somewhere in that plan and then knowing that's where you want to get to at the end. That's important. Like, so
I
I
think that you
do.
and I,
Oh,
one
go
just
ahead.
one thing on that before you transition. I think you and I are prime examples of people who have let processes get in the way. I
Yeah,
think skin tones was a bit of an example of that. And I think that we carried some of that into the other businesses that we've attempted to start together. And me especially, I've always worked in the corporate world, so all that stuff is organized, everything's in place. I'm coming into a world that's already got everything going for the most part, you know. So I expect to need to do that everywhere that I go too, whether it's a business, whether it's a podcast or whatever. And I don't know, we're like prime examples of maybe dialing back a bit on that process stuff and just doing the stuff because it's going to come out great and we'll figure this stuff out as we go.
sure. And like when you're in that mindset of you need the perfect solution all the time, then you just don't do anything. Like, so I've switched my framework to be like, don't talk about it, just do it.
Yeah.
And that's really helped me, whether it's shooting something like this or shooting a video on my own. I've sent you videos that I've made that are really shitty, but the process has been cool, especially like for me, writing is something I love to do. So, and doing the research, like, that is fun to me. And the video, the shooting part is fun. I know that's not where my skills lie, is setting up the cameras and editing more so than anything, but it's the relief you get when you make something too is just so validating for yourself. And I think we talked about this before about Rick Rubin, just like you're supposed to be making journal entries, really. If something comes out of it, that's great, but no expectations is the best expectation. And that's when the best product comes out too, I think.
Well, I'm starting to find that with this too. I know we've texted a bit about intros, thumbnails, little things like that. I'm starting to wrap my head a bit around what kind of goes into making this process good,
Yeah.
but I've enjoyed not overthinking any
Yeah.
of it and just letting the episodes kind of grow as they do because I don't know. I, for one, don't really have the time to overthink it, and neither do you. And I think watching the incremental progress over time will be way cooler than us just coming out with a decent product and then
Bangers.
staying consistent right out from the beginning. So
Yeah.
that'll be
Well, and
cool.
that's the thing. Consistency is the key with everything. People talk about how important that is in any situation, but the ability to show up and do it is day after day, even when it's boring. That's like the best skill you can have. That's what makes people great compared to people that just do something cool one time. If you can show up and do it when you don't want to do it, like to be 100% honest with you, I did not want to jump on here today. That
Yeah.
was my last day of work. I I'm still feeling shitty from the weekend, like all these different things, but I knew once I got on here it'd be great. And it was good that we got to focus on you.
Yeah.
So, and now
Ironically, I'm feeling the same. I feel like I blacked out through half the blab, but I've been doing about my business, but it's all right.
that's good. Like, and I feel like I have more energy now because I knew this is something that's important to me and it's important to you too. And like, I didn't want to let myself down, but I didn't want to let you down too.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad I showed up and did it. And I'm glad that, now consistency is so important. Like whether it's the gym or whatever it is, like as long as you just do it. And that's what we were talking about with the businesses before too. Most of these people suck, but like they show up all the time and they do it. And that is such a great skill. So
Well, now that this has made it past being an idea, it's a lot easier to commit to it, especially if we're committing to a day. There's obviously going to be times that we have to um, switch days or whatever if we have things that get in the way. But you know, we're committing to a day during the week at a similar or same time that we're gonna hop on here and just shoot the shit. Like we said from the beginning, it's at its core. We're documenting some stuff for sure, but it's also just a way for us to hop on a call and catch up. And if we don't have to think too much of it past that, it makes it a lot easier to carve the time out. Because yeah, I've it's been a long day for me as well, but here we are.
exactly. And I like that you even mentioned that piece too, is it starts to become a therapy session then when you're like, you want to do it or you know that you're gonna do it because it means something to you. Like, yeah, I was even thinking before I got on here, I've just been feeling super overwhelmed with like, the changes that are going on and all these different things. And, I can tell I'm overwhelmed because I keep going to my phone and looking at Instagram and like I've been doing that over an extended period of time just because I knew I needed a big change. And so now I'm like, well, I'm going to take a 2-day phone break the next 2 days, but this allows you to, or whatever your craft is, to lock in and just like fully be present. And I was having a conversation this weekend about the flow state and understanding like what that is. And missing that feeling. But when you find things that you actually want to do like this, and the flow state can be as simple as just clearing your head of everything and just being so into the moment. And it could be in a conversation, it could be into a sales pitch, it could be into, doing your SEO work. It doesn't really matter what that is. But I think that a lot of people lack even something like that in their life after high school sports go away, or maybe they never even did sports, so they don't know how to get into that flow state or what that is. But once you do that, or maybe it's running high. Like when you find those things that give you that high, oh, it's so much better than drugs and alcohol. I promise. Like,
100%. Yeah. We're on the opposite end of the spectrum, well, where we got too many of those things that we get that from. So it's trying to juggle those that's sometimes tough.
yeah, exactly. But, and I think that's important too. This is totally non-related, but it is related. I had a mentor or a guy that I met with in Minneapolis one time, and he was talking about relationships. I said, what's some good advice that you have? I think he was having his anniversary or something. So just asked him like, what's some advice that you have about relationships? And he was like, honestly, you got to have one thing that you guys do together that you guys can be competitive at and like get better at together. And then you need to have each separate at least one thing that you both are like super into that you can get better at and be competitive at. And he was like, if you can do that, that's when like good relationships happen because then there's always stuff you can talk about too.
And do you think you and Steph got that?
Yeah, for sure. I think she gets annoyed with how into some of the things I get into, but
Caroline was just saying the other night when we had some friends over, she's like, everything that Casey starts to do, he always says, "Oh yeah, marathon. I could run a marathon. I could win a marathon." It's like little shit like that. I'm like, you gotta feel that. Somebody's gotta feel that way. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. That's what even with like the business stuff, for better or for worse, have this mindset. Like if it's not a, you know, athletic or God gifted restriction, I think that I can do anything and be the best at
yeah,
anything, whether that's true or not. It's a mindset that I'm gonna have going into anything. So
for
at
sure.
some point,
Steph
it's got
was
to pay off.
Steph was just talking about the same thing with me, honestly, because we were just having some conversations this weekend. I was like, what's something you appreciate about me? And she's like, or that you think is interesting. And she's like, you just have this crazy confidence about everything. And it's annoying at times, but it's also like the thing I love the most about you is because you're just like, oh, yeah, I can do that. No, no problem. I can do that. And then like
Yeah.
she was talking about with sales, even she's like, I know you're gonna kill it in this new job because I can see like all these things that you've been learning over this extended period of time and been talking about. Now you've switched it. Like I can even notice it in your conversations with random people that you're using these skills that you've learned. And I just think it's like so cool that she recognized that because I recognized it about myself. But I think it's with everything you can do. Like once you get past that mark, like, and it starts to actually be something that you don't even just have to talk about you believing that you're going to be great at it, that you just like are like, yeah, I can see it a little bit. It's one of the best feelings to know you have some sort of skill as well.
Do you think that that's increased as you've gotten older?
Like the expand on that. What do you mean?
Like the feeling of, yeah, I could do that.
I've just always been that way. I can't lie. I've always been the type where even if I know, I've loved always talking shit. Like I mean, I come from the basketball world, so all those guys just have stupid confidence for no reason. Some of them are
Yeah.
faking it, but I've just always been like, no one's gonna show me up. Like, you can try to show me up. You might be way better than me, but I've always believed anybody can go down on any given night. So I've just always been like, yeah, it's not. And I listened to a lot of Kobe as a kid. Like, that shit's just ingrained in my head that if you just keep showing up and working harder than everybody, you'll figure it out, and that's why will do long days and long nights just because I'm like, yeah, no worries. Reggie Miller too, he used to would watch his videos all day long just because the amount of times I've heard him talk about his shit talking and like how he won games based on just mental fortitude and like breaking someone down mentally, that I just always thought that was like how you win in general, which is just
Yeah,
kind of like sick, but like I think it works too. And then I've always believed in like just how you're talking to yourself is so important. So
yeah. I mean, I think sick or not, and in basketball or not, I think there's a theme with that that can be applied to everything. So
yeah,
it's good practice to keep.
yeah, for sure. I will say though, like, and this was like even 6 months ago, probably, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't feel like I have a skill. Like that's like, because I've tried a lot of different things, even with sales, that it wasn't going the way that I thought it was going to go. And I remember just questioning myself completely, being like, I don't even think I have a skill right now. Like, I don't think I'm good at, like, what am I good at all? And then I was just like, fuck that. Like, and it wasn't like it was right away, but I was just like, no, what you're doing is right. And, when you have whatever it is, you can figure it out. So,
Yeah, that's a good way to think about stuff. Is there anything else you wanted to cover? I have a couple other things I have written down that just we could get into on future calls and things. But I mean, even as far as my process for this SEO transition, I don't know how much I answered your questions and things. Is there anything else you wanted to know about that stuff?
is there any maybe questions that you were hoping that I would ask you?
Um, I don't know. I think like we got into a lot of it. I think I've kind of gave the overview of the process. I'll maybe think more about it and see if there's any other tips or pointers or real things of substance that I can bring to the conversation because it's been a pretty haphazard approach for me. So, but
Well, nice. Anything else you want us to cover in general, or you just want us to go over maybe even preparing for next week?
yeah, I mean, I know that we have these last couple episodes, we've had somewhat specific things that take up most of the time. Um, so I usually come with at least a few things that would help us avoid dead air if we reach a break point for some of the things that we're talking about. But is there anything else like long form that you have in mind that could take up some of these episodes, or do you think that can just happen organically?
Another thing, like off the top of my head, I'm actually gonna re-listen to all these this week. Um, just kind of think of some ideas on where to go with next, and obviously, like we've been talking about how to improve it. So honestly, not at this moment. And I'm gonna do some meditating, like I said, the next 2 days and going into next week. So I have some ideas for us. How
All
about
right.
you?
Oh yeah, I'll do the same. I've listened to the past ones and I've kind of enjoyed it honestly. Like I can't stand listening to my voice, but I think they go better than I guess I
Yeah,
don't think they I don't think that they're going bad, but it's even just been interesting to see the progression between the first episode and now. And the
yeah.
last episode was a banger in my opinion, bro. Like getting to listen to the build up of you walk through the interview process and then say that you got the job. I was showing you, and this is something we could talk about too, like my chat GPT prompting. I think like some of the ways that we use AI would be helpful to talk through, but I then I started a project in ChatGPT that I'm just inputting any and everything related to these episodes to help them understand our tone, the general concepts of the podcast, the themes of the stuff that we're talking about, and just really dumping in information so that it can understand what we do. In turn, giving us good episode titles, giving us descriptions, coming up with concepts for thumbnails, all these different things. But I'm just excited to see it progress and continue to listen to them back so we can find some ways to improve it too.
For sure. I think that's a good point to talk about. That is actually something I was hoping we were going to get into today, especially like with Graham. I know he's helped you in the process of like finding a lot of tools.
Yeah.
That is something I think you're so good at utilizing the tools around you. So would love to talk more about that as well.
What we'll have to do too now that we'll get more free time is let's text and let's talk about some of the general ideas because I know I mean, we have time to do it, but I'll
Yeah.
definitely find myself getting down rabbit holes of stuff not applicable to what we were hoping to discuss. So
Yeah.
trying to keep on track.
I heard you. Let's do it. Yeah, we'll talk more. I don't know, just call me whenever you're in the airport. I'll call you too. So,
All right. That sounds good,
all right.
brother.
Sounds good. Talk to you. Another
Yeah,
one.
man. Talk soon.
Episode 4.